Hi, YouTubers. Welcome to another exciting episode of Current Christian Commentary and News. I'm your host, Pastor Steve. We had an interesting day yesterday. A lot of views on a little bit different on that Sandy Hook. But today is Wednesday, April 13th, and I want to continue to talk to you about, sort of like the language that's being stolen. Told you before that the left has stolen the language, and now because they've stolen the language, they're able to lie. I'll never forget when President Obama was first elected. Michelle Obama, I'm talking about the first time. Michelle Obama gave a speech, and this is the part I remember distinctly. She said, Barack is getting ready to fundamentally change America. And they weren't kidding. What they call fundamentally change, what they refer to as change, many of us now see it actually means destroy. Now the Bible's pretty clear. In John chapter 10, verse 10, Jesus was referring to Satan specifically, but satanic forces in general, regardless of your theology. This administration, the idea that they want to destroy America from the inside is pure evil. The Bible says in John 10:10, the thief, talking about Satan, the satanic ways, the evil forces, comes only to steal and kill and destroy. And that's what they're trying to do to the last great bastion of goodness in the world, the country, the greatest country on the face of the world in the history of human race, the United States of America. And by fundamentally changing, or as you and I might say, by destroying America from the inside, this feeds right into Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. I've told you about that before, how that Hillary Clinton actually wrote her college thesis, or maybe it was her doctoral thesis, I can't remember. But anyway, she wrote a thesis on Saul Alinsky and interviewed Mr. Alinsky, who wrote Rules for Radicals. You can still get a copy of it. Interesting note, though, a little side note. If you get an original copy, well, there's not many left, but if you get a copy of the original, it was originally dedicated to Lucifer, the very first radical. They had since it's been republished, have taken that out. But this is the idea that Cloward and Piven have taken in order to overload the system and destroy the United States from the inside out. This is why, again, I said this before, but it bears repeating. Guys like Sean Hannity, I don't know if he's just ignorant or he just, I don't know. But for Sean Hannity will constantly and continually, to this day, say this president is the most incompetent. He'll even use words like stupid, idiot, whatever, but he's the most, no, he's not. I've told you this before. He's not incompetent. He is literally, now it's not really him, but it's the puppet masters pulling the strings behind him. He has literally been one of the most effective presidents if your end game is destroying the United States of America as his is. So the economy is being tanked. One economist recently said that very shortly the United States will owe more money than it's able to produce. It's over, folks. You just look at your own household. If you spend more money than you take in, how long does it last before something's got to give? You either have to go bankrupt, or you lose everything, or you get sued, or whatever. You crash, and that's all there is to it. The United States of America cannot crash in that kind of sense where we can go to a federal judge and say, we're going to just go bankrupt, start all over. Doesn't work that way. Just ask China. Just ask those who are holding our debt. And China, of course, being one of the, if not the biggest. So we're very rapidly approaching a point where there's going to be no return. And this president is doing everything he can to keep spending in hyperdrive while at the same time diminishing and practically, maybe destroying is a tough word, but practically destroying the United States military in order to give ourselves the ability to protect ourselves. It's all part of the plan, folks. And so those of you that are like me, if you don't have a lot of expendable income, take what money you have and buy some extra whatever. Buy some extra food, buy some extra toilet paper, buy some extra soap, stock up on some water. I'm not a prepper per se, But there's nothing wrong with, even as a believer, you say, well, I'm just going to trust the Lord. Yeah, you're like that lady in the house where the flood came, and the flood comes up to the first level, and a rescue boat comes on, and the rescue guy says, lady, you got to come in, the flood's coming. She says, no, I'm trusting the Lord. And a couple hours later, the flood is up to the second floor of her window, and she sticks her head out the window, and a rescue boat comes, and the lady says, the rescue workers say, lady, you gotta get in the boat, the flood is coming. She says, no, I'm trusting the Lord. Finally, the water gets up to the roof of her house, and there's a rescue helicopter, shines a spotlight down, and says, lady, you gotta come now. She says, no, I'm trusting the Lord. A few minutes later, the flood comes, sweeps her away, and kills her. She gets up to heaven, and she says, Lord, I don't understand. I trusted you through the entire flood, and yet I still died. And God turned to her and said, what do you want? I sent you 2 boats and a helicopter. This is the mentality of some Christians that say, oh, I don't have to worry about the economy crashing or anything. Well, no, you don't, and that's true. You don't have to worry about it if you don't. I cast all my cares upon the Lord. I'm a pastor. But there's nothing wrong with being prepared to protect your family, especially you family men or you single women who have kids at home. Nothing wrong with being a little bit prepared and a little bit ready. Hopefully, when this stuff really hits the fan, the churches and the born-again believers will all come together and we will help and protect each other. Not sure how that's going to work out, because up until now it has not been working out. But the economy is one way that President Obama is trying to tank the economy. Another way, a little bit more subtle, a little bit more slower pace, but the same principle. This is an article by WorldNet Daily. I don't know if Joseph Farrer himself wrote it. I met Joe a few times. I've spoken to him on the phone a few times. He runs WorldNet Daily. It's a pretty good Christian news source. But he says a flood of Muslim refugees from Syria, an average of 350 per week, to be exact, is expected to arrive in the United States between now and the end of the fiscal year on September 30th. The Obama administration has decided to implement a surge. Isn't that interesting? The only kind of surge that he'd be in favor of. In Syrian refugees, fast-tracking the arrival of those fleeing civil war in the country to make good on its commitment to bring 10,000 Syrian refugees to the United States by the end of fiscal 2016. The administration has now decided to expedite the process, cutting the screening period from 18 to 24 months down to 3 months. This screening process, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a second, is a joke. But let me continue. WorldNet Daily has previously reported more than 98% of the Syrian refugees have been Sunni Muslims. That's key. While only 1% have been Christians. Isn't that special? Yet it's the Christians who are being systematically exterminated in what even the United Nations has termed a genocide by ISIS and other Sunni rebel groups operating in Syria and Iraq. FBI Director James Comey has testified before Congress that even with the longer 18 to 24 month vetting, it was impossible to verify the identities of the vast majority of Syrian refugees. Whenever unilateral political actions are taken to speed up a complex program which is already known to be fraught with uncertainty, it becomes virtually impossible for officials to conduct reliable vetting process, said Philip Haney, a former Homeland Security investigator who retired last year. And the figure of nearly 9,000 Syrian refugees, he said, is a floor, not a final number. In other words, the 9,000, 10,000, that's a minimum. Several GOP congressmen held hearings and sent letters to Obama voicing their opposition to the Syrian refugee program. But in the end, Speaker Paul Ryan from Wisconsin put together an omnibus spending bill that fully funded Obama's expanded refugee program. Now we know why some of the Trump supporters are so vehemently against the GOP establishment. I get it. The program will bring 8,500 refugees to the United States from all countries in fiscal 2016, about half of them coming from the Muslim-majority nations such as Syria, Somalia, Afghanistan, Iraq. The total is scheduled to increase again in fiscal 2017 to, drum roll please, don't have a drum roll, 100,000. 100,000 Syrian, Muslim, Sunni refugees being brought to this country by the President of the United States. And just like I told you, when they first started coming to Germany, most of them were military-aged males. Many of them, while the Germans were clapping, "Oh, welcome to Deutschland, yeah," the Syrians were walking up to the cameras and going like this and saying in Arabic, "We're going to kill you. We're here to kill you." These 100,000 Syrian refugees are not coming to the United States to assimilate. They're not coming to the United States because the Statue of Liberty said, "Give me your tired, give me your poor." No, they're coming to this country to continue to destroy the greatest country on the face of the earth with their lawsuits. They'll use our own laws against us. They'll say that, they shouldn't be allowed to, they shouldn't be in a restaurant that serves pork. Therefore, the entire restaurant should stop serving. It'll just go on and on and on. We're already seeing this nonsense all over the country, and President Obama is going to make sure that this filth is spread throughout the country. Are there some of these refugees that are probably good people and mean well? I'm sure there are, but the vast majority of them are military-aged males who are part of the caliphate that was predicted over 30 years ago. The top states for the Syrian refugee resettlement over the 6 months of the fiscal year have been Michigan, California, Pennsylvania, Illinois. But those numbers are now expected to balloon quickly. Michigan alone is in line to receive 5,000 Syrians this year. Just in the last 10 days, Missouri has received 16, Ohio has received 14, Arizona are 12, Illinois 11, Pennsylvania 9, Michigan, blah, 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 blah. Former Representative Michelle Bachmann, whose home district is in Minnesota, has been flooded with Somali refugees over the past 20 years. Look, folks, this is no coincidence. I realize President Obama hasn't been in power for 20 years, but they send them to her district. Why? Because she's a conservative Republican. Everything that this administration does is done to facilitate its own goals of destruction and to punish its enemies. Why do you think we've got an IRS paid for by taxpayer dollars that hones in on conservatives like the Tea Party and soon, very soon, churches, independent churches like mine? They want to punish their enemies. And this is all part of Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals. Former Michelle Bachmann said President Obama is doing everything within his power to advance an Islamic invasion of the U.S., primarily made up of Muslims emanating from global terror hotspots, Bachmann told WND. We on the House Intelligence Committee warned a year ago that Syria is incapable of vetting people for terrorism detection. Bachmann said it is impossible because Syria has no database of the records for the U.S. to pursue, and the U.S. has no embedded human intelligence in Syria. So when your liberal, idiotic friends who are ignorant, they are woefully ignorant, say, "Oh, it's okay, they can come because they're being vetted." No, they're not. They're being laid over for a period of now 3 months, according to the administration. They're being held in holding facilities for about 3 months, while they see if there's any paper trail whatsoever, which there isn't. There are no records. There are no databases. Most of these people will be issued a passport by the United States government. They don't even have passports from Syria. But this is the vetting process. So when your liberal, ignorant friends tell you, "Oh, it's okay because they're going to be vetted," nonsense. These are the same animals, many. I'll tell you, there are probably a few good ones, but many of these animals are here to kill us, to kill your children, to kill your grandchildren, to tie us up in court, and continue the process of John 10:10. The thief comes only but to steal, kill, and destroy. The latter part of that verse, Jesus said, "But I have come that you might have life and have it more abundantly." This has been another edition of commentary, of current Christian commentary and news. I'm your host, Pastor Steve. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. I'm waiting for the "and I feel fine" part. God bless you.